Hey guys, Chad Hoover, Kayak Bass Fishing, and welcome to another tow trip. For this adventure, I'm headed to Racine, Wisconsin, where I've done some pre-trip planning and some research and some phone calls, and I've found a couple of places that I think are gonna be bass heaven. So I'm looking forward to exploring some backwaters and chasing some Wisconsin bucket mouse. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. I am back in Racine, Wisconsin, and behind me is Browns Lake. I had a really good trip here last time. I was only here for a few hours, but I have a score to settle with this lake. It's clear water, and I saw some really big bass. I'm talking 5 and 6 pounders, which for this part of the country is big fish. One of the things that I'm gonna do today is, it's a weekday, there's nobody else out here, is I'm gonna have some fun. You know, sometimes as an angler, you put too much pressure on yourself. Today, I'm just gonna have fun, fishing by myself, and really this is what, to me, is the essence of kayak fishing. You don't have to have a big crazy whoop-de-doo. It's easy. Anyway, let's get out there and see if we can't catch some fish and have fun. You know, I have a lot of favorite parts about what I get to do for a living and about the sport that I'm a part of. One of my favorite parts is being out before dawn, getting out early, and just watching and listening to and being surrounded by the world coming to life. If there's a better job in the world, I don't know what it is. Maybe like Chips Ahoy cookie taster? Nah. Well, then there's beer critic. Those guys that go out and just taste beer. Oh, here we go. Fish on. Nope. I still like my job better. Besides, I'm trying to lose weight, so I have to get away from the beer. I have to stop drinking my calories. Drop the snot rocket. I mean, why would you even want to ride something like that? It doesn't even look like those people ride it anymore. I think it's one of those things where it seems like a good idea at the time. You're on vacation. The salesman talks you into it. And then it ends up getting shipped to your house. You spend 3.5 hours putting it together and then ride it once. Or maybe it's one of those things that you have so that when your friends come over, you can dare them to ride it. And then afterwards you can make fun of them. Yeah, that I could see. And that's why we don't allow things like that in the Kayak Bass Fishing Tournament Series. Just, no. No. You know, and people that own bikes like that, or bike raft boat things, those are the same people that own like pug dogs. Holy cow. This goes way back up in here and has a little bridge that goes over into another part of a lake. One of the things that I like to do when I go to a place where there's a lot of fishing options is to not safety up and go to the places where I know I can catch fish or where I've caught fish in the past. I like to explore. So I ended up finding this little creek that went under a bridge, and I worked my way back into it, and I didn't find any fish back there, but it was pretty cool to see a bird eat a dragonfly and to watch pike swimming along the edge of the grass. There's all these little things, these little details that make kayak fishing so awesome that a lot of times it has nothing to do with the number of fish that you catch. Calm down, dude. You know, I think if you live around pike where you can catch them all the time, they become a nuisance. But on a day like today, when the fishing's kind of slow, they're a welcomed interruption to the periods of inactivity. Now let's catch another 3 or 4. Something that I like to do on windy days like this, or any time that I'm drift fishing, unless it's current, because then in current I'll have the exact opposite effect, is I like to use my power pole micro anchor not just as an anchor to hold me in position, but to drop it down kind of halfway. And that drag that's created by the pole keeps the wind from blowing the kayak around backwards, so you can be facing in the direction you want to go. So, you know, the power pole micro anchor is not always just a anchor pole. You can always drop it down, and it helps slow your drift and maintain boat position and keep you from swinging around as much. Here we go. It's a pike. Calm down, dude. This guy just came up and like smashed at the frog 4 times and then finally hit it, and he definitely wanted it. So, who says you can't fish a frog or a topwater in the middle of the day when it's bluebird and sunny? You can, as long as there are pike around. One of the cool things about this little lake is, you know, for a little lake, a little over 300 acres, it's got a lot of diversity. You know, it's got little shallow flats, it's got ledges and drop-offs, it's got rocky shorelines. And unlike last time I was here, this time it's even got lily pads. So luckily I always carry a frog, like no matter what, just because I'm a bass fisherman. So I've always got a rod rigged up for frog fishing. I just didn't do any frog fishing last time I was here, but I've already had 3 or 4 blowups. I'll just pick up. Hello, this is Chad. You know, I've got the best job in the world. Hello, this is Chad. But when I say I've got the best job in the world, it's still a job. C-H-A-D, Chad, C-H-A-D. The fact is, when you're an entrepreneur and you own your own business, you never really have a time you have to be at work, but you also never get off work. And for me, that includes when I'm in the kayak. You know, I have to keep my cell phone in my pocket, and a lot of business, especially in a growing sport and growing as exponentially as the sport of kayak fishing is, you can't stop working. And that includes when you're fishing. Oh, you got to be kidding me. I'm trying to catch a fish right now. Leave me alone. Yes, ma'am. Are you there? Are you there? Come on. One of the great things about running the kayak bass fishing tournament series, I get to learn a lot from other anglers. And so this is a lure that I have kind of lamented for a long time. I would have never said, yeah, I think I'm gonna start fishing a Ned rig. But after watching Eric Siddiqui work the Ned rig, which is an operative term because really you don't work it, I was impressed. And so you can't argue with success, you can't argue with the results. And you know, I've been fishing it a lot more than I thought I ever would. In fact, there was times that I kind of swore this thing off that I wouldn't fish it. Anyway, let's see if we can't catch some fish and prove that this thing is way more effective than I ever thought it was. Just picked it up and swam with it, and then for some reason I don't hook them. So not only do I have this love-hate relationship going on with this Ned rig, but now I hate it because I stooped to fishing it and still didn't catch anything. Ugh, that's crazy. You know my favorite part of Green Bay Packers fans? Nothing. All right, guys, so it is noon, which means it is almost my feeding time. We're gonna head over to a little waterfront restaurant here on the lake, and we're gonna go grab some lunch. One of the main reasons that I come to Racine is, you know, trying to eat healthier. Those salmon are literally dollar for dollar the best bang for the buck that you can get in the sport fishing world, high in omega-3, just a great healthy fish. This is a sport that was born on sustenance, and sometimes that's part of the deal. So this kid just walks out on the dock and catches more fish than I've caught in 5 minutes. Maybe I should walk out there and get him to give me some tips. All right, guys, so we are starting the day off today at a little lake near Browns Lake in Burlington, Wisconsin, on the west side of Racine County. Now, this place gets no pressure because you got to work to get in there. Drag your boat a couple hundred yards, snake down this little creek next to this bridge, and then get out into the lake. It looks like it's going to be worth it, but you only know if you go. Great day on the water. Always starts with a little bit of sweat. So here we go. This looks like it was going to be worth every bit of effort to get back here. So let's get out here and see if we can find some that are ready to chew. One of the advantages of a kayak is how stealthy they are, but you know, they're not by default stealthy. You have to still be mindful of your paddle noise, banging the boat, dropping things in the kayak, because a hollow plastic hull in connection with the water with something dropped on it or banged on it is basically like beating on a bucket. It's going to send that noise out through the water column, and it's going to spook fish. And the clearer the water is and the shallower the water is, the more that's compounded. And actually, the less pressure the water is, ironically enough, the more things you can't get away with, because they're not used to having people there. They're not used to having pressure, and when they're not used to those things, everything is unnatural, and so therefore it spooks the fish that much easier. So when you're fishing a low pressure water, a place that very few anglers ever fish, you got to be even more mindful of the noise that you make and your approach. Here we go. Well, oh, not a monster, but my first opportunity of the day to do you know what, you know.
Big drop.
Pretty impressive that them little dudes that hit these frogs just inhale them. I'm fairly confident we're gonna start catching fish now. Oh man, I can hear him back there just busting in the grass. There he is. Well, they are digging the top toad this morning so far. And what's crazy is I was throwing a hollow body frog early and couldn't get them to look at it. Oh yeah, you know what time it is.
Big drop.
Anyway, so one telltale, like dead giveaway that they're gonna hit topwater in the pads outside of a feeding time, when I know that they're gonna hit it, is when you hear the brim start smacking, when you hear that. And when those brims starting to feed on insects, and it really kind of starts to stimulate the food chain, and the bass will get active earlier. This literally looks like something out of a bass magazine. You can't get better looking pads and submerged vegetation than this. Some of the best looking coontail and milfoil I've ever seen. And yeah, this is the stuff that kind of gets my adrenaline going. More importantly, these are one of those trips where I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself. I don't care how big the fish are. I want to have fun. I want to relax. And so I'm really starting to appreciate little things more. So just go out there and fish and have fun and learn something and put some more time in the water. Time on the water. Not time in the water, because that would not be good. But anyway, let's catch another fish. Unless you're swimming, then of course, time in the water would be good. But not time in the water when you were supposed to be in the kayak. That would be bad. All right, so here's the first fish on the chatterbait. Means they're getting a little more active. And little dinky dude. So this is a Wisconsin spotted bass. So the good thing about Racine is the bad thing about Racine. The good thing is there's a lot of fishing. The bad thing is there's a lot of fishing. So for me, it's difficult in a place like Racine where there's so many options, from the Root River to the Fox River to the harbor to Lake Michigan to Browns Lake to Eagle Lake. There's just so many little fisheries, little hidden gems that have low to no pressure. That's what makes it difficult. It's not that there's not enough fishing, it's that there's so much fishing. So come up here and find one of those little corners or pockets or gems for yourself, because they're here. All right, so enough of this pretty place, pretty water fishing. Now it's time to head out to the big lake and hook up with my buddy Rob to try to catch a giant brown trout.
My name's Rob Wendel, and I'd like to show you my setup for trolling on Lake Michigan for trout and salmon. There's a few different ways to fish for them, and the key is depth control and just getting deep. And the first rod here is what I use for what's called a torpedo diver, which is this big 12-ounce weight. And this is basically a poor man's downrigger, and this is one of the most popular ways for kayak fishermen to get their baits deep on Lake Michigan. So the rod is a medium heavy rod, and it's spooled up with 20-pound braid. The reason for the braid is that it is very strong and very thin, so it doesn't create a lot of drag in the water, and you can be very precise with the depth of it because it'll basically just go straight down with that weight. This is a line counter reel, which is really important for precise depth control because you can see exactly how much line is in the water at any given time. At the end of the braid, there's a bead and a swivel right here, and what that does is basically stop the weight from sliding down to the fish once I get a fish on. And then after the swivel, I have a leader. In this case, it's 20-pound fluorocarbon. Depending on the situation, I might downsize it to 15 or 12. But we've got some pretty big fish out here right now, so 20-pound is the way to go. And at the end of that, I just have a snap swivel and a spoon. And then this rod is set up for a dipsy diver. And again, it's a line counter reel with 20-pound braid, and at the end of the braid is this diver right here. This is called a dipsy diver, and they come in different sizes. This is the smallest one. I find it's the best size to use in a kayak because it creates the least amount of drag, so it doesn't slow you down. And the cool thing about it is that it's directional. So there's a dial on the bottom, and if you want to go off of one side of the boat or the other, you can turn that dial, and now it's going to go out to the side as well as down. And the next setup is my lead core. Now this requires a bigger reel, but it does not require a line counter. Basically, lead core line is Dacron that's filled with lead. And in essence, it's just a really long weight. So on here, there is 100 yards of lead core line, and it's metered every 10 yards. Every color it goes down, or I should say, every 10 yards it changes colors. And for every color in the water, it goes down roughly 4 to 5 feet. And the cool thing about lead core is that, one, it doesn't create any drag in the water, so it doesn't slow you down. And two, it has its own unique action in the water. So as you turn and go up and down with waves, the lead core slithers through the water and adds action to your bait. And it really triggers a lot of bites. The one thing you need to be careful of is that when you turn, you just need to make a wide turn so that it doesn't sink and hit the bottom. What I normally do is use these rod holders up here for my torpedo divers, and then I like to run my lead core straight back. And the nice thing about it is that the lead core takes much more line to sink, so it is further away from the torpedoes, and in essence, they don't get tangled together. So one thing that all kayak anglers that are planning on going offshore on Lake Michigan should have is a handheld marine radio. Really shouldn't go without it at all. A lot of bad things can happen out there, and it's good to be able to call for help, and chances are if you need help, your cell phone's not going to work. And you can listen in on other people talking about the fishing too, and get a little fishing report. So it's a dual purpose item there. My Lowrance is a very important tool for me. For one thing, I use the GPS religiously. The first thing I do when I go offshore, especially if it's a place I've never been before, is mark a waypoint where I launched, because on Lake Michigan you never know when fog might roll in, and that might be your only way to find your way back. Second thing is I'll always mark new structure and anytime I catch a fish, because chances are you'll catch another fish back on that spot. And once you're offshore, you can't really get back to that same spot. There's no points of reference. So the GPS is a vital tool for that. And my sonar, I can use that obviously to find fish and my depth, but I can also mark the thermocline. And water temperature is a key factor in finding trout and salmon. So what you want to do is find cold water, and the fish are usually below that thermocline, and it'll often mark on the fish locator as just a hazy line, and you know that's where you want to put your baits, whether you're marking fish there or not. So on Lake Michigan, the main forage for the trout and salmon are alewives, which is very similar to a shad, and there's just billions of them out there. So often the train of thought when fishing is to match the bait or the hatch out there, but in this case you want to do the opposite, because you don't want your baits to blend in to all the other bait that's in the lake. You want your baits to stand out. So we use a lot of just big, ugly, bright colored baits to catch the fish's attention from all the other bait and from long distances away. So that's my setup, and let's see if we can catch some fish.
All right, guys, so we made the move. As you can tell, the sun is getting low in the sky. Unfortunately, warm water's moved in, according to Rob, and we're probably not gonna have a shot at salmon today. So what are we shooting for today, Rob?
We're hoping to catch a brown trout. Brown trout will tolerate a little warmer water, and they're more of a homebody, so let's stay closer to shore on the structure. So that's what we're gonna go for today.
And I'm fine with that, because brown trout, come on, man. Brown trout, brown trout.
The last 3 days, we had some really strong northeast winds. And what that does is it pushes all the warm water right against the shoreline where we're at right now and just stacks it up miles out. And trout and salmon are cold water fish. They prefer water that's basically in the 50s or even 40s. And right now, our temperature is 72, which is why we're fishing for the brown trout, because they tolerate a little bit warmer water. But yeah, it makes things tough. The brown trout will still be here, but they definitely bite better when the water's cold. So out here on Lake Michigan, we troll multiple lines, you know, trying to put all the odds in our favor. We're allowed to troll 3 lines at once. And a lot of times that means that when you get a fish on, you're gonna get another one on. So there's been quite a few times where we've gotten 2 fish on at once. And one of the best times to do it is when the fish are coming back into the harbors and they're really concentrated, and you can just catch them on crankbaits, and we'll just drag around 2 crankbaits. And I know one time I was out and I had one rod just yanking back as hard as I could, and I grabbed that rod and I just got the rod in my hand and look over, the other rod was yanking back, just screaming out line. And I just kind of just reeled in the first one, and luckily the second one stayed on. They were jumping behind me and all over the place, and I was able to land both fish, you know, like 16, 17 pound king salmon, nice fish. And just a lot, really exciting when that happens. It's one of the cool things about trolling like this. You never know, you could catch 3 fish on at once.
Well, sometimes, guys, you just don't get the stars to line up. Last time I was here, they lined up perfectly, and we caught some monsters, and I had a blast, and we had scream and drag. This time, it's a little bit of a different story. So I have every intention of coming back here in the fall, because according to Rob, that's when the fish move into the harbor. So I've already got it on the schedule. I am coming back here mid-September to early October, and I'm coming back here next year for Salmonorama. So where did Rob go? Oh yeah, there he is, on the horizon. I'll see y'all next time. All right, guys, so that's gonna do it for this tow trip, and I promise you I have a score to settle with this fishery just outside Racine. Next time though, I'll just make sure I deconflict my schedule with the kids' summer camp, because for whatever reason, big bass don't like kids on stand-up paddle boards and pedal boats, and you know, sometimes those are just things that are outside of your control. But they look like they had fun. I probably should have just brought my swimming trunks. I'll see y'all in the next one. Don't forget to hit that description box. Go follow me on socials and leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.